Wine Country, written and read by Ren Bryant. If he knows I escaped, he knows where I'm going. He'll know I'll go back to the house. His house in the middle of the vineyard. Our Airbnb rental. I need to get to my girlfriend's. We need to get out of here. But I'm so weak. Every step is like finishing a marathon. The only thing that's keeping me going is adrenaline. I've been able to stop the blood from dripping out of my arm with my makeshift cloth tourniquet, but I've lost so much already. I'm so weak. He may be coming for me, not far behind at all. And if he is, then I wouldn't be able to see him. Not even the hair on his head. Not on this steep pitched terrace landscape, this maze of vines and grapes as ancient as the Romans. Not through the hazy mist of midnight. My legs burn. They scream, stop. Stop going up this endless stairmaster. This one that zigzags from Lake Geneva towards the steep heavens above. So steep. The bloody terraces of Lavaux. But I can't stop. Not now. Not with Roland after me. Though my broken thumb throbs, my knees are wobbly and my heart feels like it's going to explode and I can't breathe, I won't take a break. I can't stop. I need to get to my friends. We need to get out of this place. The vines. I can feel it as I go through them. There's an electricity about them, a heartbeat almost. It wasn't there earlier, not during the day. It's not too far now. The house can't be much further. It's in the middle of the vineyard. It's here, somewhere amongst all the grapes that glimmer in the moonlight and breathe and sigh. I think I'm close, but all I see are vines. Not vines hanging in neat rows in the vineyards, but a nest of them, as high as a wall, higher. Thousands of them strung together like a 12-string guitar. Blacks and greens and leaves, and it's the house. Girls, can you hear me? Are you in there? Say something. Girls. The vines are the house. They wrap the entire house, strangling it, turning it from lifeless stone to a knot of pulsing green. They're alive. The vines on steroids. Vines as thick as an arm, flexing, squeezing, throbbing in the moonlight, making the entire house nearly disappear as they wrap and squeeze and make the mortar crack and crumble. The vines, crushing the house, crushing my friends inside. Girls! I claw at the vines as best I can. I push, I kick, I push. My strength is zapped, but no matter how much I try to rip through them, nothing works. The vines worm together, intertwining like a ball of snakes that keeps twisting, squeezing, obliterating the house, suffocating it. If only I could get help, but there's no one in the middle of this vineyard, only house cats on the hunt for mice. And even if there was someone, then what? They're probably all under the control of Roland, the man who owns the winery. It's all his land. They're probably working in his operation, working for him at the winery, drinking his wine. I can hear the vines as they rub together, flex, wrap, and squeeze. It's ungodly, like nature's been hijacked. No, controlled by Roland. It has to be Roland controlling the vines. Somehow. He knows I've escaped and now he's doing this. Perverting nature, coming for us all. It's not a coincidence. Vines don't do this. And why? Because I rejected him? Because I found out the truth and threatened to expose his hideous and grotesque operation? Girls, are you in there? Can you hear me? You need to get out. We need to leave now. I last saw my friends yesterday. Things were fine. They pushed me towards Roland, told me to go have some fun. And now, dear God, now. We were staying at an Airbnb in the heart of Swiss wine country. Literally. The second you stepped outside, it was grapes. I thought it was the coolest place I've ever stayed. I thought I was in heaven, something magical right out of a fairy tale. But now, it's something from a nightmare. It was a stone house built in 1901. It had a moss-covered tiled roof and wooden shutters that needed to be closed nightly. It was only 2 bedrooms, so a bit small for the 4 of us, but the surroundings made up for the size. Everything from the lake to the terrace vineyards to the village to row after row of dangling grapes. It was picturesque. We were halfway through with our girls' week in wine country adventure. A last-minute fuck you to our husbands, you only live once vacation. Just me and my besties, Georgia, Shawnee, Amanda, and me. Okay, so I was the only one doing this trip as a fuck you to her husband. They all loved their husbands and had great relationships. Mine was teetering on divorce after the fight Jonathan and I had. The big one, that's what I called the fight. It made me think of this trip in the first place. After some weak make-up sex, I knew I needed to get some time away from Jonathan and the kids. Our fight ended with the words, "If you want to leave, just fucking leave. Grow some balls and get a divorce." So yeah, a bit of separation would be good. At least that's what I thought. If I was honest, the trip was also about me wanting Jonathan to understand how life would be if I wasn't there. Let him handle the kids and all the chores and see how he does. It took some arm-wringing to get my girls to say yes to this trip, but I wouldn't stop talking about it until they finally caved. There was one condition, though. We had to stop at the terrace vineyards of Lavaux in Switzerland. Georgia insisted. She was a wine snob and insisted on getting some of the local wine, stuff she said they didn't export. She convinced us to visit Switzerland after showing us some absolutely amazing pictures of terrace vineyards online. It didn't take long for us to decide to split the trip, half in France, half in Switzerland. The train ride out of Geneva made us appreciate just how special the place was. Unlike traveling out of Paris or Marseille, in Geneva you're immediately hit with natural beauty. There was Lake Geneva with its calming waters and the French Alps and a snow-capped Mont Blanc in the background. Opposite to that was France and its Jura Mountains. The place seemed so serene. As the train traveled through the countryside, the beauty amplified. It was vineyard after vineyard. And then the terraced vineyards of Lavaux, the place Georgia insisted we visit. The morning sun caressed the grapes, which were hanging neatly in terraced rows, there from the Roman times. Massive chateaus dotted the landscape. There's no way Napa or anywhere else had anything on a place like this. When we exited the train, I pecked in the code for the Airbnb lockbox. We dropped off our suitcases and decided to get a hike in since that seemed to be the most popular thing to do. There was a yellow hiking sign with an arrow along the road, so that's what we decided to follow. We figured eventually we'll end up somewhere where they're serving wine. And that's how we met him, Roland, the owner of the Clos de la Suisse winery, the award-winning winery with a secret. The hiking trail took us to a nearby village which had a wine shop. It was Roland's shop, an ancient place just like the rest of the village. It didn't look like much from the outside, but we figured some wine was better than no wine. With its thick stone walls, the store felt more like a cave. It even smelled slightly damp. Roland had me at enchanté. He was trim with slightly shaggy salt and pepper hair and a bit of stubble. He wore blue jeans and a faded black button-up shirt with rolled-up sleeves. He looked like a working man, like someone that just got done in the fields checking grapes. But at the same time, he was refined, dignified. His face seemed familiar in that attractive middle-aged George Clooney way. There was something about him that made me magnetized to him. I found myself fancying him from the moment we met. My girlfriends noticed. They also noticed how Roland looked at me and what he called me. My Rose. He said it multiple times. He didn't just say my name, Rose. He said, my Rose. It made me blush. Roland wasn't just the shopkeeper, but the owner of the vineyard. He also owned the Airbnb we were staying in. My Rose, I'm going to give you something special since this is your first visit to a Swiss winery. It's my favorite year, 2006. A very special year for our grapes. He was standing so close I could smell his cologne. It was woodsy and fruity, somehow appropriate for a person that worked at a winery. Thoughts danced through my head of life with him, what it would be like. All memories of Jonathan faded. I never had thoughts like this before, not about another man, not since being married. Roland said his wine was special, something that's not found outside this local area. Wine so good they keep it for themselves, he said. A secret blend. When I tried what he poured, the wine wasn't just good. It was extraordinary. Maybe the best I've ever had. Rich and full-bodied, complex. I noted notes of plums and apricots and minerals. I could taste the earth and something else. I couldn't describe what it was, but it was a special wine for sure. I could see why they keep it to themselves. Roland invited us all to his winery, which was a large chateau a few hundred meters from the lake's edge. He wanted us to see the winemaking process up close. All my friends demurred, but they pushed me to go with Roland. Go have some fun, they said, with a wink. Shawnee whispered in my ear, this is your time. Make sure you enjoy it. I was a bit uneasy with the whole thing. Me and another man that wasn't my husband. I wasn't looking for an affair, but I didn't mind the attention Roland gave me. I didn't mind the feeling I got when I stood next to him. That feeling of animalistic attraction, of being magnetized to a person, wanting him. So my girlfriends left me alone with Roland. Roland who called me my Rose and made me think thoughts I haven't thought before. As we climbed down the terrace landscape towards the lake, Roland offered his arm. He was the perfect gentleman. I didn't know if it was the wine I drank, the steepness of the vineyard, or the way I felt pulled to him, but I didn't hesitate when he offered his arm. We walked, arms entwined, all the way down to the lake shore, to the winery. Well, this is it, Roland said, opening his arms wide. The place was immense and imposing, with bastion towers at all four corners. A wine fortress, I guess you could say. This here is my happy place, Roland said. I like coming here, watching the wine age. Sure, it's only barrels on the floor, but it's a place I could think. A place where I could be thankful and recognize how wonderful life is. And right now, my Rose, I'm thankful to share this special place with you. In the chateau, Roland took me around, showing me the winemaking process, the vats where the wine was mixed, and the damp, cool aging room with its neat rows of oak barrels. He showed me how they steal wine from the barrel with a pipette and taste it to see if it's ready. It was amazing to get a personal tour like this, and my body tingled as I walked next to a man that wasn't my husband. It was so enchanting that I lost all track of time. When I looked at my watch, I saw I was late for dinner. My friends, I needed to get back to them. Roland smiled and gave me a slight chuckle. I often lose track of time myself when I'm down here. It's such a serene place. My Rose, I have an idea. Let's drive to Montreux, have dinner together. You can then check it off your list and say you've seen Freddie Mercury. I feel it's my duty to show you my country, even just a little bit. Then you can head back to your friends. I wasn't sure what to say at first, but then I realized I was having a fantastic day. My friends told me to have fun, so why not? Why not spend a bit more time with Roland? He was nice. After dinner, he took me back to the chateau, which surprised me. I thought he was going to take me back to my Airbnb, but I guess I should have known. He said something about a nightcap, so we had another drink. And that's when it happened. My Rose, he said, and he went right in for a kiss. Planted it right on my lips before I could pull away. It felt good, I can't lie, and I was attracted to him, wanting him. But all I could think about was Jonathan as the kids as his lips touched mine. I couldn't go through with it, so I rejected him. I pushed him away. The look on his face, he wasn't happy when I turned him down. He didn't look like a man accustomed to being turned down. I asked to go back to my friends and he protested. He said I should spend the night at the chateau. You'll be cramped staying in that house with your friends. I insist. I have a special room for all our guests. Follow me. I said no again, but he wouldn't have any of it. As I stared at his gentle smile, I felt myself getting dizzy, woozy. The world kind of bended like some Salvador Dali painting. I didn't think I had so much to drink that I'd be drunk, but maybe I was. I had been drinking all day. Maybe it was just the wine catching up with me. But then I had a thought. Maybe it was something Roland put in my drink. Maybe it was something he gave me. The world went black, and when I woke up, I was still out of it. My head pounded, and my eyes were so heavy that I couldn't open them. I was weak, so weak. It couldn't have been the wine. Not normal alcohol anyways. I've had plenty of hangovers, and there was nothing like this before. I passed out a second time, and when I came to, that's when I realized the horror of my situation. I was trapped. When I realized where I was, my heart jumped from my throat, each beat a cymbal crash in my head. I wanted to yell, to scream, but I didn't have the energy. I couldn't move. Nothing but my eyeballs could move. I was so weak. Roland didn't take me to a bedroom. He took me to a dungeon, somewhere deep in the bowels of the chateau, somewhere dank and cold. I was strapped to a bed, a needle in my arm, my blood dripping into a bag. Ah, you're awake. It was Roland. He was standing in the dark corner of the room, somewhere I couldn't see. My Rose, I wish it didn't come to this, but you see, I didn't have a choice. I was hoping to spare you out of all your friends, but, well, that's just not possible. I let out a moan. It's all I could muster. Shh, the blood's better when you're calm, Roland said. I think 2021 will be a good year. Yes, I do. The past couple of years, we haven't been able to produce the wine we're known for. COVID restrictions put a damper on guests, and, well, we just didn't have enough blood. Our grapes were good, but we didn't have our special ingredient. So rest, my rose. It will all be over soon. Roland left the room and left me to die, to bleed out in his windowless room of concrete walls, leaving me to my thoughts. Though I was weak, my mind was just fine, and it went into overdrive. Blood wine. Did I drink it? Was that why the wine tasted different? The thoughts made my guts twist. Was it the wine I saw in the barrels aging? In the mixing vats? What was that? Mixing what? Mixing blood and wine? And guests. Why did he mention guests? And then it clicked. The house, the rental, it was a trap. Those who booked to stay were his prey. They supplied the blood for his wine. I felt myself hyperventilating, and panic made me shiver. I couldn't die like this. I couldn't. And I couldn't let Roland get to my friends. I had to get to the girls. They were in danger. We all were. I pulled with all my might against the leather restraints buckled against my wrists and ankles. They stretched, but I couldn't get them loose. Not loose enough to get free. My feet and hands were too big to pull them out. I wiggled, trying to get the needle out of my arm to stop my blood from draining, but each movement made the needle stab into me and sent thunderous pain throughout my body. There had to be something I can do. I had to get to my friends. I pulled again with my left arm, the one that wasn't pinned with a needle. It seemed like I had a finger's width of room between my wrist and the restraints. But it was my thumb. My thumb prevented me from getting free. If only I could make my hand smaller. I thought I could get through the restraints. I felt ill. I don't know if it was the thought of what was happening or the blood loss, but I felt like I would soon pass out. I had to get out. I couldn't let myself go under again. If I did, I would be dead. I couldn't let Roland come back to my limp body, my dead body. If it was my thumb that prevented me from escaping, I had to get it out of the way. With gritted teeth and shallow breath through my nose, I tucked my thumb into my palm and squeezed. I pushed down hard on my thumb, hard as I possibly could, and then I flinged it forward and heard it snap. I screamed out in pain as the ligament stretched and then popped. It worked. My thumb, it looked deformed, like it belonged on Frankenstein's hand, but it worked. As I pulled my hand through the restraint, I felt searing rawness. I thought I would really pass out now, but I gave a hard tug and my hand was free. Though I had only 4 working fingers, I was able to get the needle out of my arm and free my other hand, and then finally get out of bed, slowly, shaky, barely able to stand. I opened the door and saw I was next to the wine cellar. That was good. I knew the route. I could escape. As long as Roland or someone wasn't around, I could tiptoe out unseen. Girls, can you hear me? You need to get out of the house. The vines were really twisting now, making the concrete of the house crumble, shrinking it. I could hear the screams of my friends on the other side, screams of panic. I wondered if they knew what was happening, if they could see the vines, or if they thought it was an earthquake and the building was collapsing. Girls! Rose, is that you? It was Shawnee. I pressed my ears to the vines so I could hear her, careful the vines didn't entangle me. Rose, what's happening? The house, it's coming apart. Shawnee, listen to me. Get out of the house. It's a trap. Do anything you can. Get out. Get a knife. You're gonna have to cut the vines. Yes, the vines. A voice behind me startles me and I jump. Roland's voice. As I turn towards him, I take my attention away from the vines that wrap around my torso and then my legs, then my neck, squeezing, flexing, pulsing, making me see stars. My rose, Roland says, his hands in a fist, and when he squeezes it, the vines squeeze me. It would have been so much less painful at the chateau. There's no escape, neither for you nor your friends. Now, I'll simply kill you. Let the vines do the work and I'll drain you afterwards. Tighter now, my neck in a vice, no air. I could feel the world going blank, feel myself getting light, floating through silence. No more vines slithering, no more crumbling concrete, no more screaming from my friends inside. The world starting to not exist. I think of Jonathan and our fight. It seems so trivial now. I don't even remember what we were fighting about, why we screamed those words of anger, those words of hurt. I was sorry about the whole thing. I said a silent prayer of remorse, a final goodbye. I hoped that somehow my thoughts would cross the ocean and get to my family. I hope you enjoyed your stay, my rose, Roland said with a laugh and that magnetic smile, that devilish smile that makes you swoon and feel tingly and want to follow him. He turns and heads back to the chateau, leaving me gasping as the vines choke the life out of me. A bloodless death. He can drain me later. Suddenly, air. Out of nowhere, air. I'm able to breathe. I gasp, I cough. The vines around my neck. They're gone. I'm free. You're not dying tonight. It's Shawnee. She's got a knife in her hand and she's hacking away at the vines that trap me. Roland! I gasp. Need to stop, Roland! I shake my finger and point towards the chateau. Georgia and Amanda come out of the house from the hole that they hacked through. But we need to leave, Amanda says. Get out of here. This may be our only shot. The vines, they'll get us, I tell my friends. Each word burns my throat. Roland, he controls them, and we're in the middle of his palm. There's no getting out unless we take him out. You have a knife? Are there any other weapons? Anything we can get from the house? The vines are still moving, still balling up, crushing the house, eliminating the hole that the girls came through. I don't think we're getting back in there, Shawnee says. Hey, how about this? It's Georgia holding an axe. It was laying behind the house, next to a wheelbarrow and some gardening tools. My body is broken, one hand limp and mangled, my arm wrapped in a cloth tourniquet, and my knees weak. Amanda and Shawnee help me down the terrace vineyard. Shawnee slashing and cutting the vines that slither around us as we walk. Georgia carries the axe, swinging it like she's got a machete, cutting a path straight to the chateau, straight to Roland. As when I escaped, the chateau was quiet, empty, ominous. To the cellar, I whisper. He's got to be there. He told me that's where he goes to think. It's his special place. We tiptoe down the spiral concrete stairs, down to the cellar, to Roland, to end this nightmare. Though Amanda holds me up and my fingers touch the cool concrete walls to stabilize my movements, I don't know if I can make it down. I'm so weak, I could easily slip and tumble. Georgia holds the axe with 2 hands in a ready-to-strike position. Shawnee has the kitchen knife in her hand, holding it, ready to stab anything that gets in our way. The bottom of the stairs open to a vast underground cave with a low-slung arch ceiling. The cellar, the aging room. I point. There's Roland in the middle of the room, using the wine thief, sampling his latest concoction. I wonder whose blood's mixed in that wine. Is it the last people who stayed at his Airbnb? Maybe it's aged blood. Visitors from pre-COVID times, ready to be bottled and drunk. Georgia tightens her grasp on the axe and mouth that she's going to go kill him. I hold up my hands, telling her to wait. Something doesn't seem right. This is too easy. From behind, footsteps. Before I even have a chance to look, a man pushes us down, making us tumble into the cellar, falling on top of each other, crushing my already broken thumb, making me scream. I knew you'd come, Roland says, not turning from his wine. We need to finish our harvests. The man who pushed us down the stairs stands us up, pulling us one by the armpits. Shawnee lets out a scream as he grabs her hair and drags her towards Roland. She tries to fight, but it's no use. The man is too strong. The rest of us cry and sob and plead to deaf ears. We hug each other, knowing we're next. The man pushes Shawnee over the wine barrel that's in front of Roland, the one with the top now opened. It could have been a lot easier, Roland says, pulling out a scalpel, looking at its sharp blade twinkle under the cellar lights. And a lot cleaner, too. You shouldn't have rejected me, my rose. I will get our harvest one way or another. With her arm held over the barrel, Roland slashes deep and hard, turning Shawnee's wrist into a blood fountain. Crimson spurts up at first and then down, into the barrel, like from a spigot. Shawnee screams in agony as the man holds her, keeping her over the barrel, letting her slowly bleed out and die. Georgia turns to run, but another man comes down the steps, grabbing her, holding her in a bear hug. We're trapped and scared and freaking out, and Shawnee's screaming as she slowly dies, as her blood slowly fills the wine barrel. But we have a moment, I think. Everyone's busy. Roland's filling his barrel, the man holding down a flopping Shawnee, the other holding Georgia. I look towards Amanda, getting her attention, then motion my eyeballs down, making sure she understands. She nods. I point to myself and then to Roland, and I use my eyes to indicate her and the man holding Georgia. Before we can think ourselves out of the solution, I nod. Now! Amanda grabs the knife and charges towards the man holding Georgia. I grab the axe and I'm so amped up I can't even feel the pain in my left hand as I grab it with my broken thumb. I rush towards Roland. Amanda strikes first and I hear the man scream. His yell makes Roland turn right into my axe blade that comes down like it's splitting firewood, splitting his head open, exposing his brain. The man holding Shawnee drops and runs, running out with the other man, up the stairs, away. Shawnee's on the floor, pale as a ghost, her eyes glassy and still, her body limp. The blood from her wrist is no longer a faucet, but a slow drip. She's dead. The red that circles her body comes from Roland, from his skull split in half, from his body laying next to her with an axe sticking out of his head. The girls and I gather, wounded, mournful, weeping, gnashing our teeth over what's happened. Our dead friend, Shawnee. After we collect ourselves as best we can, we take the train to Montreux. All passenger eyeballs on us and our broken, tired, and bloody bodies. The police are skeptical, of course, but a quick trip to the chateau confirms our tale. On the plane back to the U.S., with our friend's body in the cargo hold, I look out the plane's window and see Roland's chateau at the lake's edge, just as it's been for centuries. The police can close up his winery, but that won't change things. Everything will continue to exist. The chateau, the grapes, and the locals' taste for his award-winning wine, the blood wine. I'm sure within a year there will be another house that's in the middle of the vineyard listed on Airbnb, waiting for unsuspecting tourists, those enchanted by the beauty of it all, those not thinking about why they don't export their special award-winning wine.